like to welcome everyone here this afternoon for a briefing between the Senate Finance Committee, the Education Economic Development Subcommittee from the House, and the Education Business and Administration Subcommittee from Budget and Tax. Many of us have had questions still about the unemployment insurance issue, and so we've invited Secretary Tiffany Robinson here this afternoon.
Nancy, I think you just muted yourself. Madam Chair.
Okay.
There we go.
Delegate Barnes, I think you've got a statement you wanted to read.
Well, yeah, I think it was important to just outline for the public kind of what we're doing in that this is a hearing in response to reports that the Maryland Department of Labor was to submit to the budget committees via the Joint Chairman's Report. And for members of the public, the Joint Chairman's Report is a report that describes the final actions taken in the budget, including reductions, expressions of legislative intent. In that, the department was required to submit some reports, including in the implementation of the Beacon mobile app. At the time of scheduling this, they had not done so. They have since submitted some of those reports, although they were late. I think from Chair McIntosh's perspective and the Speaker's perspective, and I think Chair Gazzone's perspective, though we do have them, given how unsatisfactory some of the implementation of this has gone, and that the fact that they were late, we still thought it was important to have this hearing. I would be remiss if I did not note, Madam Chair, that we are joined, and we did invite members of the Economic Matters Committee, Chairman Davis, who may join us, Subcommittee Chair Wilson, who may join us, and we are joined by Ned Kerry, who has been the UI Oversight Chair in this interim and has done so much work. And we thank you, Delegate Kerry, for all the work you've done on the UI issue over this past year and during this pandemic. So with that, Madam Chair, I will cede it over to you, who has really taken the lead in getting this hearing set up. So I thank you.
Thank you. Secretary Robinson, I'm going to turn it over to you for your presentation. And I think what we'll do is wait until the presentation is over, and then we can ask questions. So go right ahead.
Thank you, Senator. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes.
Great. Thank you. It's great to see everyone's faces virtually. And it's my pleasure to be here today. We did submit some slides, so I was hoping that we might be able to put those on the screen. Wonderful. Love when technology works to our benefit. So I will just start by saying, again, thank you for giving us this opportunity to present to you and to answer some questions. I will go a step further. I want to thank all the members of the Budget Committee and the Policy Committee that have joined us today, but I wanted to extend a particular thank you to Senator Klosmeier and Delegate Kerry, because we have been meeting regularly. And as the UI Oversight Chairs, I do really appreciate the cooperation and the collaboration and the feedback we've received and the opportunity to provide updates along the way. I think that's helpful, and it benefits our customers and your constituents as well. So we can move right to the first slide, and I'll be brief with this presentation so that we can have plenty of time for questions. I won't go into detail on all the data metrics, but I do think it's important to highlight that we are one of the only agencies, I think, in the state that has paid over $14 billion to our constituents. That's a lot of money going into the Maryland economy, and we're really proud to have gotten those benefits out in this year, this very difficult pandemic year with new federal programs. As you can see, 8.2 million conversations with our customers in different ways, over 2.9 million claims with 1.5 million of them being determined as fraudulent. So that's a lot of processing and work on the part of my staff. And I will take an opportunity to publicly thank them. They have worked a lot of long hours. My Division of Unemployment Insurance is still working mandatory overtime. And I wish everyone could see how hard they're working 7 days a week. Our call center is still taking calls 7 days a week. And it's really important that we have these opportunities to remind all of the public how hard our staff is working, because our ultimate goal, as is yours, is to resolve every single issue for every single customer and get them the benefits they deserve. So we can go to the next slide. And I wanted to the next couple slides really are just to help show you what our department has done to really try and improve our customer experience. This slide represents our call volume and the decrease in our call volume, thank goodness. The red line represents total calls received since August. And the yellow line represents unique calls that come into our call center each day and week. The blue line is the number of calls that our call center handles, the calls we answer and respond to every day. So I will highlight for you that red arrow in the middle, because shortly after the federal benefits ended in mid-September, we were very excited to finally be at a point where the blue line crisscrosses the yellow line, which means we are handling more calls than unique calls are coming in. The total call volume overloads our call lines with spam calls and repeat callers. Some people use a bot, some people just redial all day, every day. We have a separate queue now to handle those repeat callers. And as those issues get resolved, as you can imagine, with the federal benefits ending, those claims get fully resolved and they don't call back, which is a great thing, because we're handling those issues for our customer. But it has also allowed us to answer every call coming in to our center, which is the most important thing. So we can move to the next slide. And this is a really exciting initiative that we initiated back in July, which is in-person video kiosk appointments for our customers. We started this with 5 kiosks in our Baltimore, Utah Street building lobby. We expanded it into another larger room with 10 kiosks, and we have since expanded it to 4 of our American job centers across the state: Hagerstown, East Point, Salisbury, and Largo. And these appointments are important because it gives customers the opportunity to make an appointment online, come in to meet with us. It is we have live staff able to assist and walk people through the process, but we have agents on video. So someone is talking to a live person, even though it's via a computer, with live staff available and assisting and able to help. Sometimes claimants have just had trouble uploading identity verification documents, and they want someone to help them scan them in and talk to a person live to get that resolved. I'm proud to say that we have resolved almost 5,000 cases to date through this new system with a 92% success rate. So that's really important, because sometimes this is the population that maybe doesn't have access to a computer or has trouble with the technology and wants to speak to someone and see someone's face and have someone help them through the process. So we've been able to do that, and we look forward to expanding that even further into more American job centers across the state. So we can move to the next slide. And this slide represents how the progress and the reduction in caseload specifically for your legislative districts. These are the number of cases remaining as of October 27th in the Salesforce legislative system. You'll see that we have gone below the 5,000 mark for those cases because of your feedback and your collaboration and the working that we have with your staff to get these cases resolved. The district case managers, I know I've heard from many of you that has been working well. They are proactively kind of working through constituents that have reached out to your office to make sure that they receive the follow-up, and that someone on the back end is working with our adjudication team to get those cases resolved as quickly as possible. So the numbers don't lie. You can see the progress since those federal benefits ended, and we just expect that to keep moving down the line until every single constituent has their issue resolved. I will mention before we move on that these, someone asked me the other day why some of these cases that are left take a long time. And I will tell you, it's because oftentimes the ones that we're working through now are the most complex. Sometimes there are, as many of you know, because your staff especially has talked to some of these constituents, they might have multiple issues relating to multiple employers or multiple programs in our system. And sometimes that takes multiple members of our team to work through those issues to get that resolved. So you can move to the next slide, which really shows you what the first JCR was focused on is what our Beacon mobile app looks like. We're really excited to be able to offer this option to our customers. And I wanted to just kind of show you the picture of what it looks like online and what it appears like on someone's Android or Apple phone. And if you go to the next slide, you can see some of the reviews. This slide shows the reviews from 2021, and you can click right to the next slide because I just wanted to show you the continuity of those reviews. These are all reviews from 2020. Since we launched this app, we have consistently been making improvements. But even since day one, we have received really high reviews for ease of use, and that was the purpose. So as you might know, when you're using any app, for example, a banking app, usually an app is a streamlined functionality. It's trying to make the user experience easier, simpler, more friendly. So you can't always put all the text from the full website into an app. That's the way every app works. We do the programming for the site, and then we have to separately program the functionality for the app. And we started by choosing the functionalities that we knew would be most needed and used by our customers and would make it more simple for them to do through their phone. So if you go to the next slide, you can see the list of functionality that is in our mobile app currently. I will tell you that our customers primarily use the mobile app to file their weekly certifications. Not everyone chooses that option. Some people like to do it on their computer. Some people on Sunday night are at home and go to their computer and they do it at midnight, really, like clockwork every week. But others prefer to do it, on their way easily through their phone. And that is one of the things we have gotten the best feedback on, which is the ease of use for customers to file their weekly certification through the app. So we're proud to be able to offer that to our customer. You can go to the next slide. And this just gives you some statistics on how many claimants, over 600,000 of our claimants have downloaded our app. And over 5,000 employers. So we think those are great numbers. And while we have discovered in talking to counterparts across the country, while many states are moving more to a responsive design of their website for use on the phone, we really believe that the app tool is important for our customers. And so we continue to improve it along the way. Obviously, a customer can certainly go to our website on their phone. But as I mentioned before, the clicks become numerous, the text, gets scrunched together. And so while we improve both at the same time, we always feel like it's going to be important for our customers who've gotten used to having the ease of an app to use that simplified, streamlined platform. And so if you move to the next slide, I will talk just for a second about some of the things we're already doing to improve the app. Since the time we launched it, we have been accepting feedback from multiple sources and finding ways that we think our customers are looking for more information on the app and where our resources would best be suited to make improvements. And so you can see that some of the things we are currently working on is the increased capacity for our users to view employment information on their screens, monetary detail information, dependence information. A lot of them use the app to go in and change their tax withholding status, which they can already do, but we are adding more information so they can see more about dependence. And we're adding an appeals lookup screen, which we think will be helpful as we transition into claimants ending their benefit years and those that may need to file an appeal. So we'll move to the next slide. This moves into really some of the data from the next JCR that was submitted. And we know you were interested in learning about the total amount of benefits paid broken down by program and state and federal funding. So I won't read it to you, but you can certainly see the breakdown by color and by program. And if you go to the next slide, it gives you kind of the numbers version of this. The blue highlights all claims filed, 863,000 complete claims. Those are claimants that have filed a complete claim in our system and submitted a weekly certification, meaning they have requested payment. We had claimants early on that filed a claim and never followed up. Maybe they didn't quite understand how the federal programs were going to work. They thought they would be eligible and then they realized they weren't. So they never followed through and filed any request for payment. So we don't count those claims as a complete claim because we can't pay someone if they don't request that payment in our system. So that's where those numbers come from. As you can see, we are proud that we have processed over 97% of all complete claims. And our pending number is just over 17,000, just under 18,000, which is 2.1%. I will tell you that percentage of pending claims awaiting an initial determination the percentage is less than the percentage has been in normal times. Now, obviously, the volume is historically higher than it has ever been in the past. So the number is higher, but the percentage is lower. That just means that we are continuing to work hard. And you can see from regular UI to the other federal programs, PUA, PEUC, and extended benefits, the breakdown of those numbers. And we will be submitting these numbers to you monthly in accordance with the JCR. So you can go to the next slide. And I wanted to just kind of touch on a little bit of information about our claims processing. I think everyone understands that the federal PUA programs that came from the federal government had a very different rules and investigatory period than our regular UI program. So what I mean by that is we have to determine wages in the system for regular UI. Most of you, especially those who are sit on our UI oversight committee, understand in detail how much goes into the processing of those types of claims. PUA was very different. The federal government required us to allow customers to file their PUA claims and estimate their income. And we paid claimants quickly based on an estimated income. And then down the road, when they had to submit documents to prove that income, to prove their employment, that's when we had to investigate those claims and make adjustments if necessary. So our statistics are extremely high for our speed of paying PUA claimants and a little bit slower for regular UI claimants. But again, that's because of the rules of the programs and the volume from the pandemic. So we certainly have implemented all kinds of security features to combat fraud during this pandemic as well. I think you've all heard me talk before about the fact that we and 3 other states have mitigation laws that make our process a little bit more cumbersome, and it takes just a little bit longer. But I will remind you that a claim lasts for 26 weeks, typically in regular UI, and under these federal programs, the extensions were more than a year. So that caused us to kind of investigate and evaluate claims along the way. Sometimes people would get approved and paid for multiple months, and then based on an answer to a question that they submitted in a weekly certification, it might trigger a hold on their account that we would need to investigate for that particular week. Maybe they reported wages, or they reported something that we have to investigate before we can pay that particular week. So that's what we're working through in terms of the backlog with these claimants. And you can move to the next slide. I think that's it. And I would be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Any questions?
I think there's one.
Delegate Wilson, I think you had your hand up. No?
I think Senator Elfreth on your side, and then
Senator Elfreth.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and Madam Secretary, thank you for joining us today. I think I can speak for all the legislators here that our offices have become de facto Department of Labor offices over the last year and a half, trying desperately to get our constituents the funding they need to keep a roof over their heads, food on the table. I personally received a call last winter. A mother had to send her children away because she couldn't afford to turn the heat on. I mean, you know these stories. We know these stories. These are real. What Senator Mikulski used to say, macaroni and cheese issues. And so I appreciate your staff's attention to this. The genesis for the JCR report language was kind of, from my office's perspective, was inspired by the fact that we were receiving a lot of phone calls from constituents who, when they lost their job, lost the only access they had to a computer. They did not have a personal computer. And at the height of the pandemic, libraries were shut down. There were no opportunities for them to utilize a computer. And obviously they lost their jobs, could not afford to buy a personal computer. So many of them were utilizing the app. And our frustration stemmed from the inability in that circumstance, which is real. We did a rough count in my office. About 30% of the folks that we were helping were in a position of not having access to or their own personal computer. So that was kind of the spark for this question of how do we fully, form out the app for those who don't have it. So I think the biggest hindrance is the submitting of an initial claim, which is still not still not something anybody can do under the app. And I guess my first question is, can we work towards that, please? Because while this was an extraordinary circumstance, I think the important thing is we were learning lessons and adapting and building off of what we've learned. So is there any plan to get the functionality of an initial claim through the app set? And then my second question is, how much did the state of Maryland pay for the app? Thank you.
Sure. Thank you, Senator. I'm going to take your last question first, only because I will have to get back to you on that. Obviously, the app was programmed and created by our vendor Sagitech, who created the Beacon website over the past 5 years. Never planning, as you know, to have to implement all the new federal programs in this past year. But that's what they did, and they did it quickly. So I don't have the exact cost for the portion of the Sagitech contract that went towards the mobile app, but I can certainly follow up and get that to you following this hearing. In terms of the initial application, as I mentioned earlier, the initial application was purposely never intended to be part of the mobile app. And that is because of the study that we had done internally and with our vendor and looking at other states and what they were doing. Not all states have an app, by the way, but the user friendliness of putting the entire initial application on the app was determined not to work very well. And the last thing we wanted to do was make anything more difficult for our customer. Like I said, they can already go onto the website on their phone to go through that. It is cumbersome and difficult, but the amount of information, and let me give you just kind of a very simple example, an employer's name, the section where you input your employer's name and information in the website, the field on a phone isn't big enough to kind of type in and show it all. So I was informed that there would be a lot of complex programming that would go into that. And in the end, the user experience would not be great, simply because of the number of clicks, the number of the amount of information that is required to go into that initial application. We certainly, I think when we were looking through this, there were some statistics and data about how long anything should take you to do on a mobile app. And if it's going to take you 30 minutes to do, one function on a mobile app, it's probably not a good function for a mobile app functionality. That being said, I mentioned earlier that we are already working on improvements. So I'm happy to circle back on this, and if it is determined that the mobile app is not the right route, maybe we can look at other types of responsive design for our website to make it easier to fill out that application, on your phone from the website. I'm happy to look into that more. We work through these things every day with our vendor and with our IT team. So this is kind of where we are now and the improvements we're making. We also have a grant that's going to USDOL soon. And that is also seeking some new functionality to be funded and covered for this app. So I'm happy to report more to you as we make more improvements.
I would appreciate that. And just, Madam Chair, just my word to the Secretary is just, I would like us to think about what happens. We are deeply privileged. I'm using my personal laptop for this, for instance, deeply privileged to have a personal laptop. Not everybody, and a significant amount of our constituents do not have that privilege and ability. And so I would love us to think about ways to make sure their user experience is still as robust as everybody else's. And when I first asked this question of your staff, the response I received at the time during the budget season was that we got the app for free in addition to the contract for Beacon. And I would just caution that, maybe we got what we paid for to a certain extent when we are thinking about the whole user experience. Thank you, Madam Secretary. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Senator. I will follow up on that point. Certainly, we always planned to have an app as part of our system. So it was part of the cost of the contract, and I can certainly look for that breakdown for you, but it was always the plan. The pandemic changed our timelines and our processes a little bit, but as you mentioned, we knew this was an important tool for our customer. The good thing about where we are now is that our American Job Centers are open. Like you mentioned, libraries are open. We have the option for in-person appointments at our kiosks. So we do hope that we have given enough opportunities and avenues to reach every single customer.
I think we have Delegate Kerry. Delegate Kerry, are you still with us? Okay, you're next.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon, Madam Secretary.
Good afternoon.
I have a couple of questions. First of all, Senator Klosmeier and myself, we understand that the Deputy Secretary Freeman, who was the unemployment insurance point person, I guess, who was in charge of that, has resigned. What are you, we just heard about this. So what are your plans for this important role? I mean, we're still not out of the woods yet. I mean, things are starting to trend in the right way, I think, but this key staff person is gone. What are you going to do?
So thank you, Delegate Kerry. And we're so excited for Dana Freeman, who moved on to the private sector. But I will tell you, the beauty of team labor is that we have really been all hands on deck for this entire pandemic. And so the staff in the Division of Unemployment Insurance has not skipped a beat. And I'm really proud of them for that effort. All the way down the line of the entire department, because we in the Secretary's office have people trained, even on my team, how to do unemployment insurance adjudication. And a year and a half ago, we may not have had that experience if we had not been kind of required to get more involved because of the pandemic. So this has been a team effort, and we will move forward. Like I said, we haven't skipped a beat. We are interviewing candidates and looking at options to fill that role. And I will certainly be communicating back with the UI Oversight Committee when we have found the right candidate to fill that role. But we have, excuse me, 5 division directors, excuse me, within that division that oversee each line of business, from the project manager to the beacon site. Of course, I would get a tickle in my throat in the middle of a hearing. Excuse me.
Go ahead, take your drink.
I can't unmute. There we go. That has never happened to me before. Sorry about that.
No, that's fine.
So from the director of the tax and employer division to our HR and staffing and grant writing to our IT, we have expertise that goes very deep in this division. And I will tell you, just this week I was talking with some of the employees, and many of which who've been with the department for 20, 30, and over 40 years. So there's a lot of institutional knowledge, and they remember instituting, emergency programs back during the Great Recession. That didn't compare to the pandemic we're in now. But I just wanted to kind of share that with you, because I hope you know that we are all one team at Labor. We've had other division directors step in to help with UI during this pandemic. And we look forward to kind of getting through the backlog. Like you said, there has been a downturn, but we know there's lots of work left to do. The numbers don't lie. Our call volume is down, our caseload is down, but we still have customers that need our help, which is why our staff is still working overtime and still working 7 days a week. So we will certainly update you when we have announcements to make. But in the meantime, we're getting our work done, and we're improving the customer service for our customers and for your constituents.
Okay, and I know that the others have questions. I know Senator Klosmeier does too, I'm sure. But the other question that I have is, the legislature passed a number of bills in the last legislative session dealing with UI and trying to make improvements to the system. Where are we with those bills? I know it's, the list is long. It may be too much to go into right now, but if you could share with us and the Appropriations Committee, and the Budget and Tax, and where are we with the implementation of those bills?
Sure. You're right. It's a lot of information, so I'll try to kind of summarize without explaining every piece of information that we've gone through with these new laws. We have completely implemented all the regulations related to work sharing and providing payment plans for employers. So we're excited about that. As you know, Delegate Kerry, we're working with our contractor, Upjohn Institute, on a study on our trust fund and ways to improve the way we collect benefits and pay benefits in Maryland to benefit both employers and consumers. There was a study bill that required us to submit lots of information. So some of it you have now in the JCR reports, but we also have a live website that is available at any time for anyone to take a look at, with lots of data points, with pending claims and the staffing updates, everything that was included in those reports. So in the most recent JCR, the link to that website was provided on page 3. So I hope everyone will take a look. And certainly we can, work to improve how that looks. But our IT team and our UI team has worked really hard to make sure that that is live data. Some of it pulls from USDOL reports. Some of it is reporting that our team is plugging in and updating every single week and month in accordance with those new bills. Let's see, we have appointed an ombudsman, and regular emails are going out to our customers in accordance with those new bills. I know that was a big focus of making sure that we are communicating regularly and kind of substantively with our customers to let them know why their claim may be on hold and how it's being resolved or who it's assigned to work on it. Let's see, I talked about in the beginning the case manager for the customer constituent, as well as the district case managers that's been assigned to your offices to kind of help audit and resolve claims that you submit to us through the Salesforce link. We are really excited to have infused the first tranche of the over $1 billion into our trust fund under the Relief Act. That met the September 30th cutoff for our snapshot that gets taken of our trust fund for setting the rates for 2022. So in accordance with that new law, the rates will be set in Table C for our employers for 2022. And the rest of that money will go into the trust fund in December to ensure that we meet the intent of the Relief Act. If I've missed anything, I'm happy to take questions. I'm trying to kind of touch the highlights and summarize for you, Delegate Kerry.
No, and just so the Table C, so that law, that's for 2022 and 2023?
Yes.
Okay. No, that's all I have. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Okay,
And thank you again for your leadership on this.
I think we have next Senator Klosmeier.
I just want to say, I guess the apps must be working quite well, because I just asked Evan and he said he hasn't had any complaints or any accolades either. So as long as they're working smoothly, I think that's really good. But I just want to follow up with Senator Elfrich that some people are not computer savvy, and me being one of them. And it would have been hell and back if I would have had to apply online for this. But basically my question is, I had asked and over and over if there's a phone number, if we can figure out an app, if we can get a phone number that designates the Department of Labor so people would know when they were getting called back if they're waiting, because many of us get phone numbers and you look at it and say, I'm not answering that phone number. So that is something, that I have been really asking about. And if we could build that into the budget, that would be very helpful. And the other thing, I'm just going to follow what Delegate Kerry said. We were talking about the reform measures, all the different things that were in the bills. And I think you've gone through all them. And I think when we have another meeting, we'll go through them and just knock them off. And just as long as you're doing all those things, because you were rattling a lot of them off. And so you think so, Delegate Kerry? Does that sound feasible?
Yes, ma'am. That sounds good.
So I think that's the best thing that we can do. But I'm glad that, things are moving along. And I think, are we supposed to have a report in December from you?
Yes, so the study bill that I mentioned that is going to give kind of an overview. There's lots of information that goes into that report. We were, as in accordance with the new law, we were required to contract with a consultant to do that report. And so Upjohn Institute, who we had a relationship with and had already had access to some of our data, is doing that report. Dr. O'Leary has worked with the UI Oversight Committee in the past and provided some information for UI. But I spoke with him last week, and he is in the process of still collecting lots of USDOL data and our department data so that he can run all the simulations and do those forecasts and provide everything that's been asked for in that report, which is due December 1st.
Yes, and the other thing that I just want to ask, the health exchange information on that has that been implemented?
So I'm glad you asked. We have been working closely with Michelle Eberly and the Health Benefits Exchange. We have signed an MOU between the exchange and the Department of Labor, and there has been lots of programming. I am not an expert enough in IT to explain to you all the programming that has already happened, but we are actively sharing data with the exchange, which I think was the goal prior to open enrollment. So we met that goal. We have a little bit of work left to do that we're trying to accomplish before the end of the year.
And are we getting any more customer service? Do we have any more pins for that, or is that done?
So we are working every day to improve customer service, and we are still hiring internally. We didn't talk much about staffing, but I think I've probably mentioned it so many times before. I think everyone knows we have hired over 2,200 employees through internally and through 2 vendor contracts at the Maryland Department of Labor during this pandemic. That's a lot of people to train on a very complex program. So we are now working more to continue to hire internally and to cross-train every single person, because our goal from the beginning was to allow a call to be answered and that claimant to have their issues resolved, from beginning to end. And because of the complexity of this program and the complexity of all the federal programs that were added, it became very difficult to train one person on everything all at once. So we had to train people on portions of the program, but we're at the point now where we're able to cross-train many of our teams so that it does improve that customer service and it improves that that experience. And we also do have an RFP out for a customer service kind of quality vendor to be on board to provide us with surveys and more feedback as well. And that was required as part of the legislation too.
Yes, and that's what I was looking for. So, okay, thank you. Well, carry on. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
All right, Delegate Forbes.
Good afternoon, Madam Secretary. Thank you for your work in this presentation today. And we are eternally grateful for our district case manager. She has helped us solve some really cases for some very desperate people, and we appreciate that. Today in your presentation, you talked about the total Salesforce cases began really dropping September 28th. But I need to share in our office, that coincides with the date when cases began being closed en masse. So we had cases, and many of them, who part of their case got solved, like they had been tagged for fraud, so they've proved who they were, but they'd never been paid benefits. And so they all got emails saying their case was being closed and they'd never received any money. And so it was a tremendous amount of work for both my staff and a tremendous amount of stress on my constituents, because the case shouldn't have been closed. And so I just wanted to let you know that. So thank you.
Thank you so much for bringing that to my attention, Delegate. We may not have communicated in the best way about what was happening there, but I will tell you, when your office or when a constituent submits a claim into Salesforce through that link, a new case gets created for every time it's submitted. However, on the back end, those get connected when the adjudicator or case manager goes in to resolve them. So we did do some cleaning up to make sure that one person didn't have 10 claims open, but all the information from each of those issues should have been pulled into the remaining claim that was left open. So those numbers that you see are people, not, Salesforce entries, if that makes sense. So if there's an open claim left for a person, that means that every issue that's associated with it, should be addressed by the district case manager, the adjudication team when they get to it. If that's not happening, we can certainly follow up with you. As I mentioned, sometimes claims have multiple issues. And someone who's an expert in one issue may resolve that and then have to pass it to the next person that's trained to handle the next issue. So it may not all happen in the same day, but I can promise you we're working very hard to resolve every issue for every customer. So thank you for that feedback.
Thank you.
Okay, I think we have Senator Zucker.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I know that this past year and a half has been very challenging. And I know when the platform first launched, there was a lot of problems, and kind of echoing what Senator Alfred said in terms of the mobile app, that if people don't have a computer, they can't sign up. And, I'm just thinking about everything that happened with the original program and then the mobile app. I think in some ways, in comparison, it makes the health benefit exchange rollout look pretty smooth. But I believe that we ought to make sure that we bring this mobile app to the, the same standards that we would, that our constituents expect. And I guess my question is, at what point will the mobile app be able to have people sign up? When and how, and how will they be notified about that?
So thank you, Senator. I will certainly have to follow up with you on that and discuss with my team, because as I mentioned to Senator Elfreth and the committees, that was not an original intent of the app, simply due to the feedback that we received about how filing an initial claim on the mobile app would not be very user-friendly. And that's not our goal. We don't want a customer to have to spend an hour trying to click through, 100 links and not be able to fit their information in. That being said, we're evaluating all options to improve our customer experience. And if this is the feedback that you are hearing, that more customers need the ability to do that on the app, we will reevaluate. And whether or not it's through the app or through an easier function for our website on the phone, we will certainly research that with our vendor and get back to you.
Okay,
Yep.
Senator Zucker. All right. Vice Chair of the Subcommittee, Solomon.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Madam Secretary, it's good to see you again. Thank you for reaching out as well. I wanted to also just echo the sentiments of my colleagues. Having the district representative has been really helpful, and I want to make sure that I acknowledge that they have helped us close some of our really most devastating cases, and I really appreciate that. But I also want to echo, I think particularly if we can get the app to at least, maybe the initial application piece is a little bit harder. I would encourage you to work on that. But if we can get to a place where you can upload documents through the app as well, I know we've literally had, my chief of staff has done incredible work in literally opening up her home to having. We don't have a district office; it's our coffee shops and our houses. And she has literally had constituents come over to use her computer, her scanner, to upload documents. And most smartphones have an integrated capacity to be able to take pictures and then upload them into a PDF. So I think that at the very least would be really helpful, because most people don't have scanners anymore. And I think that would just streamline the process. And I know you and I had talked about this, and we've talked a little bit about it today. I just wanted to say there are still, I think, a number of data points that the committee's requested that we haven't gotten. And I know you all have a million different reports to file and, a myriad of different things to do for different levels. But, just saying it's on the website, or I think we asked for it because we want to see the data. And I know the one number in particular, well, there's two numbers I think in particular that I'm really curious about: the average wait time for processing of claims, whether they're the pending ones or the the ones that are going through just sort of the normal process. What's the average wait time for those to be closed? What's the outstanding wait time on the claims that are still outstanding, the 20,000 claims? And then I think we'd all be curious to know how much is actually still outstanding. So we've got, give or take about 20,000 claims outstanding. what's the actual monetary amount of those claims? And then, you and I discussed this as well, the metrics that have been put in place for the private contractor that we brought in, and are those metrics being hit? Because I will tell you, it's encouraging to see the graph and the chart of the call volumes, but I'm still, and I mentioned this to you, I still hear from constituents, and I'm sure my colleagues would say the same thing, that they just can't get through. And so I don't know where the disconnect is there with, we're saying we're able to satisfy all the incoming calls, but in reality, the situation on the ground is still, it's not as bad as it was, but still folks who are saying, I'm desperately trying to get through. And I think the individual case manager, again, has helped to solve some of those, because we have a point of contact that we can help funnel people through, but on a regular basis, where's that disconnect between the folks who say they can't get through and the numbers that we're seeing writ large?
Thank you, Delegate. I will first say I'm really glad to hear that the district case managers are working well. Again, they were kind of an added level to be proactive in monitoring and auditing your caseload to get the priority cases to the adjudicators and to the teams that could resolve the issues, especially when there's urgency. To your other points, I hope everyone recognizes that fraud is still an overwhelming issue that we are dealing with. The FBI put out a press release last week talking about all of the fake web pages across the country, looking to try to capture identities and data so that they could file unemployment insurance claims. I don't know that the federal government ever imagined with these federal programs that our states would be hit so hard with this onslaught of fraud in our systems. And it's an identity theft fraud, a type of fraud that our programs were not used to and had not had to deal with before. So to that point, we have created full teams and we continue to hire and train staff to deal with those issues. And that goes to some of the improvements that are already underway in the mobile app, which is the ability to better upload documents. Claimants can do that now, but it's a process that can be improved so that when they upload it from there and it goes into the Beacon system, it can be viewed easily and reviewed by our team. Those improvements are already kind of on the list to be programmed and worked on. So that's one piece of good news. In terms of the average wait time of claims, that is extremely difficult for me to answer. My team is still trying to figure out the right calculation because the wait time is different by program and by type of claim and by how many issue and by, by the time an adjudicator starts investigating and in accordance with our mitigation laws, as they are digging and investigating and trying to find a way to make sure that if there are any benefits that can be paid to a customer, that we are paying them. That investigation determines the monetary amount that any claimant may or may not receive. So it's not as easy as you might think to run a query and determine how much each claimant might be able to be entitled to. That's all individual and claim based on their personal information and their situation and experience. So like I said, we're still working on it. We do have over 100 different unique reports that are due to US DOL on a weekly, monthly, quarterly basis. I know that this past legislative session added more than 12 reports that we will be submitting and are submitting to you on a weekly, monthly basis. We added the website as well because we thought that would be an easy way. In retrospect, on this last JCR, I should have requested, formally requested an extension. So I will apologize for failing to do that. I'm glad we have the information to you now, and anything that is not complete. I know there is a disclaimer that says we are actively working to calculate this number. And some of that is in accordance with the United States Department of Labor, because they might calculate a portion of it for regular UI only. And we're trying to work with them to figure out how can we incorporate the 2/3 of claims that were PUA in our system over this past year. It doesn't meet the intent of, I think, what you asked for, to submit only the regular UI portion. Although we've linked to all those USDOL reports on our website as well. So we will certainly make sure we get every physical report to your offices on time going forward. And again, we will follow up with you on metrics from our vendors and the calculations that we're still working on.
And Madam Secretary, just to emphasize Delegate Solomon's point, we appreciate the apology and understand the difficulties, but we do have a number of reports still due in November and December from the JCR, and we do have the monthly data reports, and we do expect to see those. We know that we will, and we know we won't have to be back here before session starts, having not received them. So thank you very much.
You're welcome. I can actively tell you today that the team is working on them. I think the monthly portion of the JCR was merely an oversight. And so since we have calculated all that data, it's live for you and it's in the current report, we can certainly break that down to make sure that by the end of this week, you have all the monthly breakdowns for that report.
And the months moving forward, and we appreciate that.
Yep.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, I don't see any more questions, and I think that kind of wraps us up for this afternoon. Secretary Robinson, we thank you for a good presentation and a lot of good answers, and I thank everybody here for all their input and good questions. I think it was a good hearing. So thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Senator King.
Thanks, Madam Chair.
Thank you all.
Thank you, Madam
Thank
Chair.
you all.
Thanks.